Welcome to another episode of WrestleRecap. I am Dylan Graives, once again joined by John Sutton, and it is time for the Raw recap. But before we get into that, if you want to support WrestleRecap, you can like, share, and subscribe. You can comment down below and tell us how we're doing. You can find us on Facebook at WrestleRecap, and you can also find us on X at WrestleRecapYT. But with that being said, let's get into it. So Raw kicks off with announcing that it'll be Gunther versus Kofi tonight, which means that if we go back to our bonus points from the round one qualifiers, you had predicted Ray to move on and I had predicted Kofi, so I get a point there. It's also announced that Jey Uso will take on Ilya Dragunov. But before that, we see that Drew McIntyre has arrived, and the camera just follows him from backstage out to the ring. Obviously, we get CM Punk chants because it wouldn't be a Drew McIntyre segment without him. Drew says that the greatest trick CM Punk has ever pulled was looking like a drug addict without doing any drugs. I giggled at that.
Let him cook.
I giggled at that. He says that CM Punk fans are stupid. And then he comments on Jay losing another title match and calls Damian Priest a paper champion. At this point, Damian Priest interrupts. And Drew tells Priest that he deserves success, but he doesn't deserve to be champion. He says it's the title making the man, but the man needs to make the title, and the title needs Drew McIntyre. Drew says Priest knew he couldn't win one-on-one, and that's why he used the briefcase. Priest then tells Drew that he's blaming everyone else for his failures, something that a lot of people have told Drew already. Priest tells Drew to look in the mirror and blame the asshole that he sees. Priest then says that he wanted to cash in on Seth, but Drew stopped him multiple times, and that Drew told everyone that if Priest were smart, he'd wait until Drew beats Seth and then cash in on Drew. And what do you know? That's exactly what happened.
Telegram that one.
Yeah. Priest says that all Drew had to do at Mania was have his moment and then leave. But instead, he chose to make it about CM Punk. And he reminds Drew that he got his ass whooped by a one-armed man. Got him.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Priest tells Drew that he's got a title shot and that Drew can call him a paper champion all he wants, but he's going to make Drew eat those words. I mean, Drew versus Priest at Clash at the Castle just screams Drew McIntyre winning. So.
Yeah, but this segment cooked, bro.
Yeah.
Drew McIntyre got absolutely cooked, and he's been cutting some good promos. And Damian Priest had some good lines, and I was like, damn. Dude just cooked Drew McIntyre just like that, huh?
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that Damian Priest has to drop this title to Drew at Clash at the Castle so that Drew can then start a feud with CM Punk over the title.
Or maybe CM Punk costs him the match again, and then they just have a...
Maybe, but man, to actually go to Scotland and not pretend like Wales is where Drew is from and give him the moment makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. It'll probably end up being that way, but I could also see it where CM Punk comes in and just screws him over again.
Oh, I can see it too, but that don't mean that I gotta like it.
Because you love it.
No, I don't. But following this, we're told that Lyra Valkyria will take on Zoe Stark, and Shayna Baszler will take on Io Sky tonight. We then get a recap of Queen of the Ring so far for Shayna and Io. We then also see that Shayna and Io got into it in the parking lot earlier. But what do you know? It's now time for Io Sky versus Shayna Baszler. Amazing. Shayna attacks Io during her entrance before the bell, and officials pull Shayna back as we head into commercial break. When we come back, Io takes control, and another QR code flashes on the screen. And for the first time, the commentary team acknowledges the QR code, that being Michael Cole and Pat McAfee. Baszler takes control, but then Shayna wraps Io's arm in the ring, like the framework of the ring, and kicks it. This seems to be a new move that Shayna's using, because she did it in NXT as well. Shayna rolls Io back into the ring and pins her for 2, but Io takes control before Baszler fights back and gets Io up top. Io escapes though and pushes Shayna down, causing her foot to catch on the rope, so she just kind of hangs there. Io hits a springboard moonsault on Shayna on the outside as we head into a commercial break. When we come back from commercial, Io counters the armbar into a pin for 2. Io then gets a 2 count of her own off of a Meteora. Io went for the over the moonsault, but Baszler got her feet up. But that didn't matter because Io was ready for that and got her hands in the way, so she didn't take the 2 feet to the gut. Io gets a 1 count off of a bridging jackknife pin, but Shayna counters it into a Karafuda clutch. Io rolls out of the clutch and locks in the STF, but Baszler gets out of that and hits a knee strike for 2. Io hits the corner Meteora, followed by the over the moonsault to pick up the win in the end. So Io Sky moves on. And once again, Shayna takes an L.
It was weird because, Io's heel, and when she got attacked during the entrance, she just assumed the role of the babyface, and that was just kind of odd to me.
Io is heel. Shayna is also supposed to be heel, but I would have cheered Shayna before I cheered Io, just because of the whole damage control aspect.
Yeah, that's why I was confused. I'm like, why are we doing this? But okay, go Io.
I mean, I would have much rather seen Shayna win this match.
Yeah. I mean, they're 2 out of the greatest NXT Women's Champions, too, so they put on a pretty good match.
Oh, for sure. But I'm sick of seeing Shayna just eat all these L's when she's supposed to be like this powerful force in the women's division. And all she's done is become a vampire and then a tag team act, and then now she's just kind of in limbo.
Yep.
Oh, and can't forget the submission magician.
That was a dumb nickname.
I mean, they still use it. Doesn't make it less dumb, but they still use it.
I don't even think she put Io in submission, did she, in that match?
Karafuda clutch.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Following the match, Jackie Redmond interviews Io in the ring, and Io just responds to Jackie in Japanese, so I have no idea what she said, other than saying that she's going to be Queen of the Ring. We then head back to the clubhouse, that being the Judgment Day's clubhouse. And Carlito says that they agree on a lot of things. That Ray is a selfish bastard. And Carlito says that with Rhea out and Dom injured, they look like they could use a little extra muscle. And says they can all benefit. Priest says if the boys want to work with Carlito, that's on them. But as far as he's concerned, Carlito isn't welcome there. Priest says he doesn't...
That's not very cool of them.
Well, I mean, everyone except Damian Priest seems interested in the idea.
He's a cool guy. Why not?
Well, we'll circle back to that. Damian Priest says that he doesn't trust Carlito. And Carlito says that even the most stubborn minds can be changed. And maybe one day they can all be amigos. And then we head into commercial break. When we come back from commercial break, Chad Gable is scolding Alpha Academy, even though nothing's been done yet. But oh, wait a minute. Maxine lost against Shayna Baszler at the live show. Like, duh. So, Chad Gable's berating Maxine for losing. And he tells them that it's going to be Otis versus Sami Zayn and Akira Tozawa versus Bronson Reed. After Gable takes off with Otis and Tozawa, Ivy Nile comes up and starts to tell Maxine that she doesn't have to put up with Gable. But Chad comes back and tells Maxine to go train. Gable then tells Ivy that she has potential, but she should stop hanging out with Taylor Not So Swift.
Lols.
Ruthless. Absolutely ruthless. Following this, we get a recap of King of the Ring so far for Gunther and Kofi. Before Kathy Kelly interviews New Day, Kofi says tonight is about payback. And Xavier Woods says that Kofi is going to show Gunther why New Day rocks. When we get down to the ring, it's announced that Lillian Garcia is here. It's because they're in her hometown. Lillian and Samantha share a hug in the ring before, or I should say after, Samantha Irvin passes off announcing for this match to Lillian, and she announces Kofi Kingston down to the ring before we head into commercial break. When we come back from commercial, Pierce and Awesome Truth are backstage talking about needing new number one contenders, and Kiana James comes in. Apparently she's going to be working closely with Adam Pearce.
How closely?
I mean, I insinuated it, and you just went right for it. We then head back down to the ring, where Gunther comes out, and apparently Lillian was only going to announce Kofi because Samantha Irvin was back on announcing for Gunther. Kofi went after Gunther before the bell, and he targets Gunther's right knee. Again, we're targeting knees. It's a common thing now, at least these last few weeks. Kofi gets a good amount of offense in before the bell is finally rang, and the ref never even checks with Gunther to make sure he's okay. Kofi gets up in the ring, and him and the ref exchange words, and then the ref just calls for the bell while Gunther is still down in the corner. Kofi goes for the Trouble in Paradise right from the rip, but Gunther ducks underneath and goes for a German suplex, which Kofi escapes out of and goes right back to the knee. Kofi hits a top rope leg drop for a 2 count. Then Kofi goes for an S dive but gets caught, and Gunther takes control outside of the ring. Gunther locks in a Boston Crab, followed by a single leg crab on the announce table as we head into commercial break. When we come back, Gunther is still in control, but Kofi tries to fight back. However, it's not enough, and Gunther just takes him back down with a power slam. Kofi reverses a submission into a pinfall for 2 and gets a big boot for his efforts. Gunther goes for a diving elbow drop, but Kofi gets out of the way. Kofi then tries for an SOS, but Gunther counters it, and Kofi ends up hitting a frog splash crossbody to take Gunther down. Gunther locks in a Boston Crab, but Kofi gets out of it and finally hits the SOS for 2. Gunther gets a 2 count of his own off of a ripcord lariat. Then Gunther wraps Kofi around the ring post, and eventually Gunther sets up for a powerbomb, but Kofi counters that into a Hurricane Rana, sending Gunther into the ring post. Kofi ends up hitting a Trouble in Paradise and almost gets a countout win, but Gunther manages to get back in at 9. Kofi goes for another Trouble in Paradise, but Gunther dodges it and hits a powerbomb for 2. Gunther turns Kofi's kickout into a Boston Crab, and therefore Kofi is forced to tap out, which means that Gunther moves on to the semifinals.
The Ring General.
Yep. He will face the winner of Jey Uso versus Ilya Dragunov. We then get a flashback to Liv confronting Becky last week before subsequently ditching Becky when Damage Control came out, which led to Lyra Valkyria making the save. Jackie Redmond is then talking with Lyra Valkyria, and Lyra calls out Damage Control and says she'll always have Becky's back. Becky comes up and says something about the Fighting Irish or something or another, and then just walks away right away. Jackie asks Lyra about her match tonight, but at this point Liv interrupts, and Liv asks if Becky has always been a bitch. Lyra tells her to ask Becky for herself, as Becky is now standing behind her somehow, like just standing behind Liv on the opposite side of where she went. Yeah, like she just walked out of frame, walked around the camera guy, and then walked up behind Liv. Becky punches Liv and says that she's not the one afraid of a face-to-face fight as we head into a commercial break. When we come back, we see Kofi walking down a hallway before Karrion Kross tells him that there's always time to turn things around. Not sure what that means.
But the only interesting part is that it might be a Kofi heel turn.
I doubt it. I don't foresee them breaking up the New Day any more than they already have.
It's kind of already ran its course-ish.
Nah.
Unless
New Day is forever.
Big E comes back, but
New Day is forever.
Might be a heel turn.
Nope. I refuse. New Day is forever.
Might be a little, as Cena said, a little
Nope.
heel turn.
Nope. Can't happen. We need more bootios. You're just gonna run away?
No bootios.
Rude.
Heel turn.
No.
Bring back the pancakes while they're at it.
Yeah, pancakes and bootios.
And a little heel turn.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Do it.
Never.
You don't have to. Kofi will.
I don't want it.
You need it.
Nah. It's now time for Bronson Reed versus Akira Tozawa. Akira Tozawa utilizes his quickness to start the match, but Bronson Reed eventually just catches him and hits him with a Death Valley driver followed by a tsunami to pick up the win. Chad Gable.
Squash!
Yeah, big time. Chad Gable scolds Akira Tozawa in the post-match. We then head backstage where Kathy Kelly tries to interview Gunther, but he denies it and leaves Ludwig Kaiser to do the interview. Kaiser says that anyone that thinks Sheamus lost because of him last week is delusional and says that he's going to be the one to put Sheamus out of his misery. So I'm assuming that this means that we're going to get Sheamus versus Ludwig Kaiser. We then head into a commercial break. What's up?
I guess. But we'll see.
Yeah, have to wait and see. Following the commercial break, Jackie Redmond is with Adam Pearce. New Catch Republic come in and thank Pearce. We're reminded that it's a new era. So that's a shot.
Finally, someone mentioned it. Oh my god. I almost forgot we were in this new era.
Yeah, me too. We're told that there's going to be a fatal four-way match to determine the number one contenders for the World Tag Titles. And that'll be the New Catch Republic versus AOP versus the Creed Brothers versus Finn Balor and JD McDonough of the Judgment Day. Pierce says the guys in King of the Ring have earned their spots and he didn't want to throw Braun Breaker into the deep end. At this point, Braun Breaker comes in and says his opponents would be in the deep end with him and he would drag them all under. We then get a recap of the Queen of the Ring round 1 for Zoe Stark and Lyra Valkyria ahead of their match. At the start of their match, Valkyria takes control early, but Zoe takes control outside with a clothesline as we head into a commercial break. When we come back, Zoe gets a 2 count off of a springboard missile drop kick, but Lyra fights back into it. Lyra gets a 2 count off of a tornado DDT before Stark fights back into it and gets a 2 count off of a reverse T-bone suplex? ? Wasn't sure what that maneuver was, but it looked interesting. Zoe goes up top, but Lyra dodges it. And Lyra hits a spinning heel kick, but Stark counters the subsequent suplex into a suplex of her own into the corner, which she gets 2 off of. Stark then goes for the Z360, but Lyra counters that and turns it into a Nightwing to pick up the win. Overall, this was a really good match.
Yeah, I'm glad that Valkyria won too.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that this was probably match of the night.
It was definitely up there, top tier. I mean,
like when you
I guess
look
I can't think of any other matches from there that would have been good.
I mean, if we
look as good. Oh well, okay.
If we look back at the matches, we had Shayna versus Io, but I mean that was a good match, but I don't think that I think Stark and Valkyria topped that. What else did we have? I'm running through my notes looking for matches.
Akira Tozawa and Big Bronson Reed.
I mean,
that
we had
technically
Kofi.
a match.
Yeah, we had Kofi versus Gunther, but I mean that match, it was decent, but it wasn't. I would say it was mid.
Yeah.
And then we had Akira Tozawa versus Bronson Reed, which was just a squash match. And yeah. So then we had Stark versus Valkyria. I mean, the Fatal 4-Way tag match was pretty decent, but with that many people, you should be able to have good spots.
I really liked the Jey Uso Ilya Dragunov match.
I
2 weeks
didn't.
ago.
I did not.
I'm just trying to get into Ilya Dragunov, so that's why I'm like trying to
Oh,
force
yeah,
myself
that's.
to feel
I mean, Ilya's
like
great.
him.
And Jay's also great until the bell rings. So, yeah.
Then he turns into Little Jimmy.
Except, unfortunately, we still have to see him.
Wait, you can see him?
I mean, we can still see Jimmy. Wait. No, Jay. Jay's the one that's in the match, not Jimmy.
Yeah.
How would he turn into Little Jimmy?
Fine, Little Jay. Doesn't roll off the tongue as nice.
Little Bill.
Little Bill.
Jackie Redmond interviews Lyra right away in the post-match, and Lyra says something in Gaelic before saying that she only flies the way of the crow, and that's straight to the top.
Dude, that was way too long of a pause to say straight.
I mean, I had to add it in there because she said it so fast that saying that a crow flies straight to the top doesn't make sense.
And then
you
the Gaelic thing, it just sounds wrong. I know it's a thing, but I
mean, she's Irish.
Yeah, I know.
You can't, just because you don't speak their language doesn't mean that it's wrong.
What do you mean their language? You can't be saying that nowadays.
I can. Gaelic is not an American language. It is an Irish language.
Which is drunk English.
No, it's not.
It is.
It's not.
Oh, no, that's Scottish.
English is just a bunch of other languages smushed together.
Yeah, that's close enough. We'll call it close to English.
We then get a recap of King of the Ring Round 1 before Jay cuts another cringy promo about his match.
Yeet!
It's then time for Sami Zayn versus Otis. Otis takes control early, and I hope that Otis leads the eventual split from Chad Gable. Maybe even
has to.
Yeah, he has to. But maybe even we have Tucker come back and they reform Heavy Machinery. In the match, Otis is feeling it and he starts vibrating. But Gable scolds him. Doesn't matter because Otis hits the worm anyway. Gable continues to scold him before he tells Otis to go up top. So Otis starts to do that. But Sammy dodges the splash. Sammy then hits a haluva kick to win. Gable immediately starts berating Otis post-match, going as far as slapping him. At which point, Sammy runs back to the ring and hits Gable with an exploder into the corner. But Gable dodges the haluva kick and rolls out of the ring. Otis helps him up while apologizing as the crowd boos. Gable then says that it's all Otis's fault and slaps him again before they head backstage finally.
Perk Gable is the best Gable.
Oh, for sure. We're then told that Becky Lynch takes on Dakota Kai next before we head into a commercial break. I forgot this match was even on the card. It took me by surprise when it popped up.
He's like, oh shit.
When we come back from commercial, Braun Strowman is talking to the Creed brothers and wishes them luck tonight before JD shows up and tries to mean mug Braun Strowman. JD tells Braun that Judgment Day runs Raw and to consider himself warned. Oh man, I can't wait till Braun Strowman just tears JD McDonough apart.
Bro, JD McDonald's head is almost as big as his arms.
I mean, he's a real life Funko Pop.
And his arms are huge.
It's then time for Dakota Kai versus Becky Lynch. I noted that Becky is wearing gear inspired by the Outsiders, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. At one point during, I think it was Becky's entrance, Kairi Sane had borrowed a sign from a fan that said King Coda on one side, obviously referencing Dakota Kai, and on the other side it said Damage Control runs Raw. I just thought it was an interesting little thing that they showed on. Becky takes control early, but then Io tries to get involved. However, Becky just takes her out with a kick. Kairi then distracts Becky, allowing Dakota Kai to take control. And then we end up getting a double down as we head into the commercial break. When we come back, Dakota Kai has control, and they trade roll-ups back and forth. Dakota Kai gets a 2 count off of a springboard stomp to the back of Becky's neck. Becky dodges a second one, though, and gets a 2 count off of a rope-hung leg drop from the second rope. Dakota Kai counters the manhandle slam and gets a 2 count off of a haluva kick. Except they don't call it a haluva kick when it's her that does it. Dakota Kai goes up top, but Becky catches her and hits a superplex before transitioning into an armbar. They trade pins back and forth before Becky locks in the disarm her, which causes Kairi Sane and Io Sky to attack Becky, forcing the DQ. Lyra Valkyria comes out to make the save and takes out Dakota Kai and Kairi Sane before exchanging words with Io. Becky then takes out Io Sky, but following this, Liv Morgan comes in and takes out Becky from behind to close out the segment. We're then taken backstage where Jackie Redmond talks to Ilya. Ilya says it's not enough just being here. He wants to make an impact, and it starts with becoming the czar of the ring. He recalls.
I like that little thing.
I did too. Czar. Yeah, because he was the czar of NXT. Now he'll be the czar of Monday nights, and I mean, in theory, could have been the czar of the ring. He recalls his match with Ricochet and says he's bringing the same fight to Jey Uso. He caps it off by informing those that didn't already know that he's beat Gunther and they have a long history together. Following this, Gunther shows up and just smirks before walking away. It's now time for the number 1 contenders match for the World Tag Team Championships, which is the Judgment Day, Balor and JD, a team that I've wanted to see since Jordan Devlin was in NXT UK, versus the Creed Brothers, versus New Catch Republic, versus AOP. Awesome Truth is on commentary, except I don't think they were. They were just sitting at ringside. So I screwed that up in my notes.
Yeah, they weren't talking. They were just kind of there.
Yeah.
I mean, they were talking to themselves, but that was about it.
Finn Balor and Tyler Bate start the match, but the Creeds tag in off of Pete Dunne, and JD just continues to eat punishment. AOP ends up taking control as we head into a commercial break. Keep in mind they were not tagged in though, and as I said earlier, or actually I think I said it in the SmackDown, episode. I don't think AOP was ever legal in this match. When we come back from commercial break, Judgment Day is in control over Brutus Creed. Finn and JD take out the New Catch Republic before Brutus just takes both of them down. Julius gets a 2 count off of a standing shooting star press, and JD goes to break up the pin, but he's a little late, and he just lands on Finn Balor. Balor ends up getting a 2 count off of a roll-up, and then Balor goes for the coup de grace, but New Catch Republic stop him. AOP end up grabbing New Catch Republic and getting their attention, at which point Bate and Dunn each do their own respective moonsaults to take out AOP. Julius Creed hits Balor with a superplex for 2. The Judgment Day counter the Brutus Ball, but got hit with a Super Collider instead. The match breaks down once again as AOP take people out, despite not being legal. Bate hits Akam with an airplane spin before Balor rolls Bate up for 2. New Catch Republic hit the Birmingham Hammer on Finn, but JD pulls Dunn off of the cover to save the match. Tyler Bate takes out JD, but lands himself gut first onto the announce table, and my God, that looked painful.
I would have threw up right there.
Yeah, he definitely...
I don't care, lunch or no lunch.
He definitely overshot.
He probably even knew it was going to happen. He's like, this is going to hurt.
Pete Dunne tees off on JD on the announce table before Carlito shows up and hits Dunne with a backstabber on the table. Balor then... What's up?
Cool. How cool is that? 'Cause I think that's cool that he did that.
Hey, you know, Damian Priest also thought it was cool.
Hey.
Balor then hits the coup de grace on Pete Dunne to pick up the win, making the Judgment Day #1 contenders for the titles that they are owed a rematch for. They're also owed a rematch for the WWE Tag Team titles on SmackDown, but apparently they don't get one. The Judgment Day deserves their rematches. Damn it.
I told you they would turn a blind eye.
It's ridiculous. Need to put some respect on their name.
You know, R-Truth tried to.
He did. He tried
and they wanted nothing about
He tried to make the Judgment Day better, but they didn't want him.
See? The minute they dropped R-Truth is the minute they didn't get them rematch clauses.
Well, maybe they don't get the rematch because R-Truth, who's a member of the Judgment Day, is holding one of the titles. So, de facto,
True.
They still hold the title.
The title, but they still get a rematch clause for the other titles.
Maybe. We then get some announcements for next week. It'll be Sami Zayn versus Chad Gable. I'm sure Bronson Reed will interrupt this match. Lyra Valkyria versus Io Sky for the finals of the Raw side of the Queen of the Ring bracket, making it the semifinals overall.
That one will end in chaos.
Maybe.
Everyone's going to be involved in that.
I mean, I see Damage Control getting involved. I see Becky getting involved. I see Liv getting involved.
Yep. Like I said, it's going to be total mayhem.
It's also announced that Gunther will be taking on either Jay or Ilya, depending on who wins. Spoiler alert, it's Jay. we're then shown that Ilya is preparing himself backstage, and Ricochet comes in and wishes him luck tonight. Jey Uso comes out, and McAfee splooges himself. It's also, yeah, every week.
I know.
It's also worth noting that the Fireflies have chosen Jay as the Yeeter of
That
Worlds.
was funny too. I was like, jeez, man.
We then head into commercial break. When we come back, we're back in the Judgment Day's clubhouse. Damian Priest asks Dom if him and Rhea are good, but before Dom can really answer, Balor and JD come in with Carlito. Priest tells Carlito that what happened out there was cool. Priest asks Carlito if he can handle his business with Ray, because the crew doesn't roll with cowards, and to not let them down. We then head back to the ring, where it's time for Jey Uso versus Ilya Dragunov. It's unfortunate that Ilya has to lose here, but we can't have Ilya versus Gunther as a throwaway match in the semifinals for King of the Ring. So, Ilya had to lose. It sucks, but it is what it is. It's a back and forth start. I noted that Ilya makes a good tweener in terms of playing both the heel and the babyface, because he can very easily just switch back and forth, even in the same performance.
Yeah, it's weird. Like 1 minute, you're like, is this guy heel? And then all of a sudden, you're like, he's face.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, I don't know what you are. He's a vigilante.
Ilya takes control on the outside. He goes for the H-bomb on the announce table, but Jay dodges it. And then Jay breaks the 10 count before spearing Ilya across the announce table to take us into a commercial break. When we come back, Ilya has control, and they trade blows. Ilya looks for the triple German suplexes, but Jay escapes after 2 of them. Ilya gets a 2 count off of the Constantine special, and then he chops Jay down in the corner. Jay tries for a second, Jay counters a second Constantine special and hits a super kick to get a 2 count. We're shown that Jay is bleeding from his ear due to a kick that he took to the head.
That was odd that they actually showed blood and, like, acknowledged it.
Well, I mean, it wasn't intentional. I feel like they acknowledge it more when it's not intentional.
It just seems odd that they even acknowledged it, because even, I think, was it Iliad last week had blood, and he's like, oh, he's bleeding, and I'm like, normally it's going black and white at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Ilya brainbustered himself last week, so, yeah. Dude's nuts.
He's not all there, which makes it perfect.
But Ilya counters the spear and hits a power bomb, followed by the running H-bomb for 2. Jay counters the Torpedo Moscow, though, with a spear and follows it up with an Uso splash to pick up the win, meaning that it'll be Gunther versus Jay next week to determine who moves on to the finals at King of the Ring in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia.
We can just say who's going to win that match.
I mean, we don't even know who's going to be in it against Gunther.
Gunther's going to win.
Yeah, I know. I jumped right ahead to saying that we don't know who's going to be in the finals against Gunther.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Gunther comes out and the show closes with Gunther and Jay having a stare down ahead of their match next week. Yeah, I don't see Jay winning, despite how much it seems like they're wanting to push him.
I
It just,
wouldn't push him. It
yeah,
doesn't
I
make
mean,
sense.
it doesn't seem like he's gonna be the guy. It definitely seems like this is Gunther's tournament to win.
I think it'd just be weird to have Jay as the king of the ring, and then essentially, if it doesn't work out, just throw him back into the tag divisions. Which, I mean, he's got to be a part of this bloodline story.
Oh yeah. Once
So he,
once Jimmy comes back, they'll reunite and be a tag team, and then Roman will come back, and it'll be good bloodline versus bad bloodline at Survivor Series. But that's not till November, so we got some time to kill before we get there.
yep. I don't think he's gonna win. So I don't
No,
think it
I mean
makes any
it's gonna
sense
be.
for him to win.
I mean Gunther is my pick. Like as soon as King of the Ring was announced, Gunther was my pick to win. And yeah.
Just seeing who's in it, you can't not choose Gunther, but maybe they throw us a curveball and someone like Randy wins. I'm not saying it
If
because,
Gunther wasn't in King of the Ring, I would have predicted that it was Ilya's to win.
yeah. I mean, I liked Elliot as a finalist until he lost, and I'm like, okay, but I get it why he lost.
Right. That concludes the Raw recap. Once again, I've been Dylan Graves. He's been John Sutton. This has been WrestleRecap. If you want to support WrestleRecap, you can like, share, and subscribe. You can comment down below and tell us how we're doing. You can find us on Facebook at WrestleRecap, and you can find us on X at WrestleRecapYT. Until next time, though, goodbye.